In this video, we'll go over some of the networking basics that can be useful when setting up a Dante network. Using Dante does not require you to be a networking expert. The majority of the time, settings may be left at defaults and you'll get great results. Let's look at a few things that are useful to understand. IP addresses are the numeric names that network devices use to identify themselves, whether on your local network or on the internet. Most of the time, you don't need to pay attention to IP addresses. The systems we use keep them hidden from view, and things just work. Dante works on a local area network, or LAN. LANs are everywhere. The Wi-Fi system in your home is a type of LAN. A LAN is a small network of computers, no more than 200 or so, that share a specific range of IP addresses that identify them as being in the same group. Within this group, they can communicate with each other. They cannot communicate with computers outside the LAN unless there is a router that translates addresses to talk to some other LAN. This provides a degree of automatic isolation between LANs, which is helpful. Internet IP addresses are different because there are so many and each must be unique. In practical terms, what is really done is that we use LANs inside our homes and offices and then use an internet router to translate these addresses for internet use. That way, the same IP addresses can be used over and over in many LANs at the same time and are translated into legal, externally unique values by our routers. That is why you so frequently see the same ranges of IP addresses used over and over, because the individual LANs can't see one another. Common numeric ranges for LAN IP addresses are 192.168.x.y and 10.x.y.z, where x, y, and z are between 0 and 255. These ranges are set aside for exactly this use, and you'll encounter them frequently in Dante setups. We've described something about what IP addresses are, but how do devices get them? Where do they come from? While IP addresses may be assigned manually, this is rarely necessary and is far more likely to result in human error over time. In Dante systems, devices usually get addresses one of two ways: DHCP or automatic private addressing. What do these terms mean? DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It's a system that automatically doles out legitimate IP addresses to devices that request one on a network, so users don't have to think about it. These IP addresses are given out by a DHCP server. DHCP servers are incredibly common and are built into most routers and even switches. When you connect your phone to the Wi-Fi in some coffee shop, that's a DHCP server at work making sure that you can get on the network. You don't have to know what the address is because DHCP does the bookkeeping for you. Dante devices are all configured to use DHCP right out of the box. If your network has a DHCP server in the form of a router or switch, Dante will use it. But what if your network doesn't have a DHCP server? This is often the case in very simple Dante networks that are not connected to the internet. Here is where automatic private addressing, also known as link local, comes into play. When a device makes a DHCP request, it waits for a response. If there is no response after a few seconds, the device assigns itself an IP address in a special reserved set of values. It then checks to see if there are any other devices on the network doing the same thing, and adjusts its IP address so as not to conflict. The result is a fully functional LAN that manages its own addresses. Note that such a system cannot access the internet, but for closed audio networks, it's fine. Automatic private addressing means that you can simply connect Dante devices together with no DHCP server, and things will just work. When you open Dante Controller, you won't see IP addresses unless you look at the Device Status tab. Instead, all the devices are shown by name. This is not just cosmetic. Because all connections are understood by Dante as being between names, it's easy to prepare backup devices in the case of an emergency. If a Dante device fails, simply replace it with another device that has an identical name and channel labels. Dante will recognize the device and resume normal operation instantly, no configuration required. In networks that are operating at high levels of utilization, say 50% or more, there's often a need to prioritize one type of traffic over another. This is often the case with real-time media systems such as Dante or voice-over IP phone systems. If the network becomes clogged, real-time performance can suffer. To alleviate this problem, managed switches include a feature called Quality of Service, or QoS. When QoS is turned on, it establishes a priority, like special delivery for traffic that is marked as urgent. All Dante audio traffic is marked for QoS at the highest priority level. This means that Dante audio will arrive on time, even at the expense of other traffic, which is exactly what we want. Note that inexpensive unmanaged switches do not include QoS. While this is adequate for small, dedicated networks, we recommend the use of managed switches for consistent, professional results. When choosing a network switch for a Dante installation, there are only a few parameters to keep in mind. Recall that to a switch, Dante appears to be ordinary network traffic. There's nothing special about it being audio. Here are a few switch pointers. Always use gigabit switches. You'll save a lot of headache by avoiding older 100 megabit switches altogether, and fortunately, those are getting more difficult to find. Purchase gigabit switches that are non-blocking. This means that the internals of the switch are capable of handling full traffic connections on all ports simultaneously without error. Fortunately, all new switches are non-blocking. If you think you need QoS, get switches that support 4 queues with strict priority. If the switch has energy-saving functions, they must be able to be turned off. If they cannot be disabled, do not use that switch. You'll find that there are many switches that meet all these criteria at very reasonable prices. For a list of switches that do not meet Dante recommendations, see Audinate.com. By following these guidelines, you'll ensure consistent high performance with Dante.